it's Zack, and I'm back with another episode of Elevate and Accelerate. And today I'm going to be talking more about our business trifecta. Specifically, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper to one of the three levers that I shared with you in the last episode. So if you remember, even if you don't, here you go, a nice little picture telling you more about what this is. So the business trifecta, again, is media, marketing, and PR. And this is the philosophy and the system behind building a celebrity expert brand, a brand that positions you as the go-to authority in your field. And so that's what this is all about. And ultimately, what I'm trying to help you do is see how this is going to lead you to living a life of joyful impact and significance, where you take your skills and your unique abilities and the things that you have learned through your experience and expertise and how you help other people, where you can achieve the life that you have wanted while also helping other people achieve the life that they've wanted as well. And so at that point where those two things intersect, you are living a life of joyful impact. But all of that comes together when we can focus on how we can turn our business and our personality from a place of being hidden to being pursued, where our marketing is not just random and pieced together from things that we thought looked good, but really repeatable, where we produce consistent results. And PR is the process of moving us from a place where we are just promoting ourselves to where other people are promoting and celebrating the things that we are doing with us. And so let's dive in a little bit deeper. Now, talking about media particularly, again, we talked about media being something that helps you move from being hidden to pursued. If nobody knows who you are, then how are they going to know to work with you, right? And then once they do know who you are, they've got to know you, like you, and trust you. And ultimately, those are the type of people that we want to do business with. We want to know who we're doing business with. We want to know why they're doing business in the way that they are and that they're not going to take advantage of us, right? We want to build trust, and we want to be able to trust the person that we're going to be giving our hard-earned dollars to. And so the same thing's true for your prospects, your clients, the people that are looking at you to solve their problem. So what are you doing to get in front of them in a way that is positioning you as that go-to authority, as somebody who they can trust, as somebody who they can rely on, not just because of what you know, but because of what they know about you, right? And so that is something that we're going to talk a little bit more about today. Specifically, we're going to dive into the 3 accelerators. So if you remember my cool little image that I shared with you earlier, this screen would probably be a little bit better for you. Those little white words all the way around the outside of this Venn diagram are what I call accelerators for each one of these things that I'm going to be sharing with you. So first, we're really going to look at credibility. Why is credibility important for you and your business and really ultimately building your brand? Now, as we've talked about media before, there's 2 different kinds of media. There's mass media and direct media. Mass media are going to be the things that you're used to. You're watching or listening to this program right now on a form of mass media, whether that's through Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, or even through a website or something of that nature. There's also other kinds of mass media like publications like magazines, trade journals, newspapers, things like that. We've got our news networks, our TV networks, and all those stations in which we can disseminate information to other people. Now, there's one thing in particular about media that I want you to walk away with here, and that is the understanding that media is a medium for sharing your story. Okay, so again, I talk so much about personal branding, and a brand is a story. And so media is this platform for you to be able to share your story. Now, which story you share and how you share it and all those types of things are things that I unpack further in my actual boot camp when I go over all of this stuff. But for you, it's probably best to understand it as this is the why behind what you do. The story that you share with your audience is the reason why you're so passionate about helping people in the way that you help them. You could have chosen any other kind of work. You could have gone into any other type of industry, but you are where you are because of your past, because of the story that you have lived, and because of the things that you have experienced. And as a result, you are helping other people shorten their journey to a similar place of success, or to not have to go through things that your family members have gone through. I may have shared this story with you before, but there's a financial advisor friend of mine who said very clearly, I don't have a story to share. And as we talked a little bit further, we realized, he does have a story. And the reason why he became a financial advisor was because his dad passed away and left his mom with no plan, with nothing. And so he watched as his mom had to get a job and struggled to figure things out and to raise him and his siblings and all the different things that went into that now, as a person who helps people plan and prepare for retirement, he's doing the very thing that kept his mom from living the best life that she could have had his dad planned similarly, right? And so you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so now he is helping other people not go through that same experience that his family had to go through. I mean, what a great story, right? And as he shares that story, other people get to hear, well, I don't want to leave my family in a similar situation. I don't want to die and leave my wife or husband or significant other with nothing or no plan or nothing in place that's going to help them even just take care of the basic necessities of life. They have to sell the house and move into a smaller apartment or whatever it might be, or go get a job, right? So all of those things are a part of his planning process. And I can share with you a number of different stories that are like that along the way, but we all tend to create the type of business that we need. We fill a gap because of a need that we see and can't find the type of solution that would really work for us. If we did, then we would just hire somebody else to take care of it. But because we feel like there's a need out there that isn't getting met or that we can meet better, we started our business. And now we're going after those people, going after them to serve them, going after them to let them know that we are here to help them. Just as we've been able to help ourselves get to a place where we are now. So credibility is an important part of that. Again, getting back to this idea that media is a medium for sharing your story, but in the ways in which you share your story can also lend to building trust and credibility apart from them even hearing your story in the first place. And so we talk about mass media being a place that is a transfer of trust, where if you can say, as seen on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, or that you've been interviewed on this podcast or that TV show, or that you're a best-selling author and that you've got a book on the subject, all of these things are mass media credentials that lend to the authentication of your authenticity. It lends to the ability for people to be able to make a wise decision to choose you over your competition, because there is a transfer of trust between those things that they see. Now, I give examples all the time of how this works. And one of my favorite examples is Tony Robbins, right? Most people know who Tony Robbins is. They've seen him, heard of him, have experienced his message in some way, shape, or form, or has talked to somebody who has. And when I'm looking at this, I always visit his website. And while this banner at the top changes, right? The above the fold call to action changes depending on what's going on, whether that's a next event or whatever it is. If you look at the very bottom there, he has as featured in Inc., Fortune, Forbes, Success, right? We've talked about Jack Canfield all the time, somebody who's most known for his book of the Success Principles, but even The Secret, but primarily Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? The co-founder of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And yet on his website, you see the same thing as featured on, right? And all these different networks and things that we as the consumer recognize as authoritative, as credible. Grant Cardone, right? Here's an ad that was found on Facebook, right? As I was scrolling through, or somebody actually sent to me. And again, come get access to this amazing event. And as seen on and as featured in New York Times, ABC, CNN, Fox, right? So I always ask people, why does somebody like Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or Grant Cardone, people who we would say are really at the top of their game, who have achieved a level of success that many of us are even shooting for, many of us don't even care to shoot for, we would be happy with even a fraction of that, right? But why do they continue to use these mass media credentials to build trust in their marketplace? Well, because it works. And when I dive into the marketing section of this in a later video, you'll see how it works in a sales funnel. Because, and I use this example all the time, if you were to treat your business and to attract your prospect and turn them into a client as a romantic relationship, you wouldn't be in a bar somewhere, see somebody that you would want to talk to, walk up to them and immediately propose. Right? They have no idea who you are. You haven't spent any time trying to get to know them. And now you're just asking them to make a life commitment in that moment, right? Based on absolutely nothing. And so there's stages to how we build trust. Another part of this is you wouldn't walk up to that same person and start sharing your deepest, darkest secrets with them. You wouldn't start just verbal diarrhea all over them with your emotions and wants and desires and needs and all these other different things. Now, if you had been with somebody for some time, if you had started a relationship with them, now maybe that conversation would be very different. But again, there's levels of trust in which we walk through as we build a deeper relationship with somebody. So your business is no different. You are in the business of building and maintaining relationships. So the same thing is true when you first reach out to your prospect. Now, obviously, you want to get them to a place where they see you as the person that they want to hire to solve their most imminent problem or the problem that you address. But how do you get them there and how quickly you get them there is all dependent upon your ability to be able to make that connection and to build trust. Now, right now, we're talking about credibility. Credibility is the first line of building that level of trust. You usually use that, as you saw a moment ago with Grant Cardone and his ads, or places on your website where people are first going to go to interact with you and your brand. Hey, guess what? I know you're probably checking out 100 other people who say that they can help you with this problem. Here's a quick visual reason as to why you should hang out a little bit longer on my website, or why you should click on my ad. Because I'm a best-selling author on the subject, because I've written a book with Jack Canfield on the subject, because I've been featured on ABC, NBC, or in Inc. magazine, or Forbes, or Fortune, or whatever it might be, right? It's a, hey, guess what? Just hang out a little bit longer, because we only have a few seconds to capture that person's attention before they move on to the next person who's saying that they can help them with the same problem. And that's where credibility really comes into play for all of this. Now, for the sake of time, I need to move on to the second of these accelerators of how you move through media, getting from a place of where you're hidden to where you're being pursued, and that is content. Content is probably one of my most favorite things, if you can't tell, right? Here I am producing content that hopefully is positioning me as an authority in the space of personal branding and building your brand through media marketing and PR. So I continue to talk about this stuff time after time after time, because there's going to be a moment where there's somebody out there who hears my name, who comes to my workshop, who listens to this podcast or this YouTube channel or sees it on my social media, and they want to find out more about who I am. And when they land on my website, or when they see some of these things, they'll see that I'm a multiple time best-selling author. They'll see that I've been on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. They'll see that I've been on USA Today, right, hanging up here. All of those things are part of it, but they also want to know that I know what I'm talking about. And so that's where content comes into play. Now, when we talk about building a celebrity expert brand, there's two parts to that celebrity expert, and we've jammed it together into one word. The celebrity part is being known, right? You can be an expert in something, but nobody knows who you are. I think all the time of scientists, right? Or people that are studying in the universities and places out there. Outside of their cohorts, we have no idea who they are, but they may be doing amazing work, right? And until it gets mainstream, we'll never have any idea who they are. And if it never gets mainstream, then nobody ever knows, right? And so there's this idea that these people are no less an expert because not a lot of people know who they are. They really are experts in their field. Now, on the other hand, you've got people who are known, but they may not be an expert in any particular area. And yet oftentimes we see celebrities and people of that type of clout talking about things that maybe they shouldn't. And we'll leave names out of that. I'm sure a few have popped into your head. So the idea of being a celebrity expert is someone who's known for being an expert at what they do. Now, we can unpack this whole idea of calling yourself an expert and whatever else on a later date. But a lot of that is just imposter syndrome in the story that you're telling yourself that you aren't truly an expert at what you do. Now, content is the way to reach the masses. Now, for many entrepreneurs that I work with, they don't have a team behind them like I do who can then take this video and edit that, or they can take the edit of this video and cut it up into smaller videos and then post it out onto my social media channels, right? I don't have to do that, which is amazing because I work for a company who handles that stuff for people. But you as the entrepreneur have to look at it from the perspective of how do I best maximize my time? And you're telling me here that content and content production is really important, but I'm also doing admin work. I'm also doing all these other things over here. So how exactly do I make time for content? And then how often should I be making this content? Because I see people out there who are doing podcasts on a weekly basis, and there's no way that I can keep up with that. And so what I leave you with here is volume over value. Right? That's what we're taught to think. If I just get it out there, get it out there, get it out there, that's what we're going to think. It's like people are going to pay attention as long as I just have content after content after content. But what I want you to focus on for time and value is the value of it, right? because you can't spend as much time as you would like just producing content day in and day out, then you've got to focus on valuable content. How do I consistently publish valuable content that engages my audience where they are, allows me to stay relevant, to show them that I'm up on the current trends or the current conversations or the current changes in the marketplace or in business or whatever it might be, and continue to add value to their lives, whether or not they decide to work with me. And that's where this content system comes into play. Now, the next step of that is repurposing your content, right? So while I record one video here and then this one video is put up onto YouTube, the audio of this video then is also disseminated out onto all the major podcasting channels. Then little versions of it, as I mentioned earlier, and little pieces we call snackables of this video are then used as social media posts throughout the month of whatever month I'm recording this video in, or whatever month it gets launched. And so my social media channels are constantly updated. Then there's quotes that are taken from the things that I say and little graphics created. Now I've got quote cards getting posted to my LinkedIn, to Instagram, to Facebook, and all these other places. So the repurposing of the same content. And the best value of all of that is the fact that it is in my voice. Right. And so if we were to outsource our marketing department and have somebody else run my social media channels, they would find relevant content, but relevant content that's an industry standard that everybody's talking about all the time. It wouldn't be unique and it wouldn't be mine. It wouldn't have my spin on it and it wouldn't even have my voice on it. And so in this brand of what I'm doing, I'm creating the content in my voice. And then all of the content that comes from that, even though it's being run by my team, is also in my voice, which is absolutely powerful because it's me, it's my story, it's who I am. And that's what people want to hear. That's who they want to work with, right? There's a lot of other people out there who talk about story, a lot of other people. Donald Miller is one of them, and he's amazing, right? I mean, he's written some an amazing books. He's collaborated with some amazing people. He's worked with top level businesses and all sorts of things, talking about using story in your business, right? So that's no different than us. Nick's book, Story Selling, was written many years ago. It was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. So again, people talking about story. You can look at Joseph Campbell and his hero's journey. I mean, everywhere you look, people are talking about story, but there's people who come here and work with us because they are aligned with our mission and our purpose to make the world a better place, to have a greater impact, and to share the things that we've learned to make a difference in the lives of other people, right? And so your story matters, and sharing your story matters, and getting your content out there shows people that you actually know what you're talking about too, because at the end of the day, you got to show up. You can't be a hack. All right. Now, the last of these accelerators that I am sharing with you today as it relates to media is connection. This is one of the most important, in my opinion, because I think connection is important, albeit my wife would tell you that I struggle with that very often. But connection is an important part of our businesses, as well as our lives, as well as our relationships, as well as everything that we do as human beings. We build societies and networks and communities because that is who we are. We are a group that is social, and we want to connect. And so how do you use media to connect with your audience? And again, this is what I've been talking about this entire time, and that's knowing and sharing your story, your core story, the why behind what you do, right? And in all these places that we look, we see people sharing their story more and more. We've got, Mo Farah, who is a runner, a professional runner, who's sharing his story on his website. We've worked with someone like Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney with Folds of Honor, who shares his story on his website. My family and I go to Maine every year. It was a tradition that was started with my wife's family 20 plus years ago. And so every year in December, we go out to Freeport, Maine, or just about every year that we can get out there, right? And if you know anything about Freeport, Maine, you know it's the home of LL Bean. And so there's a large LL Bean block of just shops and stores and all sorts of things that are there, right? And so we stay at the same inn every time we go, and we go out to LL Bean and eat at the restaurants that are out there. And no matter where you walk within this little town of Freeport, Maine, or into the restaurants that are there, there's people there sharing their stories, right? And so I mentioned the inn that we stay at is Harriseket. You'll see it on the side. And so even on a mug, the story of Harriseket Inn starts with Nancy Dyer Gray, right? And so it talks about the story of how Harriseket was found and why it was founded and how those traditions continue today. On the other side of that, you see the story of one of the Beam family members who started a restaurant because of her love of, the lobsters and some of the different things like that. So, so again, story is such an important part of these businesses. And I will tell you, as a consumer, not just somebody who teaches this stuff, every year that we go back, it's like being a part of that story, right? I've never met any one of the LL Bean family members, right? I don't know Nancy Dyer Gray or have met any of her family members. And yet we continue to come back to this tradition and build our own traditions because our stories have intertwined now. And so it's a story that I want to continue to tell. It's fun that, my wife's family brought them, and it was Sparkle Weekend and it was Christmas. And now we want to kick off our holidays with our 3 young kids and doing the same thing. And so, anyway, so I share all of that with you to say, media is a medium for sharing your story. And it doesn't matter what type of media you're using, whether it's an email blast or if it's a TV interview. The importance of your story and sharing that story extends beyond just building that level of connection. It goes into really creating a level of empathy and understanding between you and the people who are hearing your story and understanding your why. But even beyond that, you've got to make sure that you're using your media channels to produce content, valuable and relevant content that shows them that you know what you're talking about beyond just your passion of wanting to help people through that process. And so as as Donald Miller talks about, and using the Joseph Campbell hero's journey as a framework, you show up as the guide to their journey. They are the heroes of their story. And so you are the guide that's going to help. You are the expert who's going to show them the way that they can shorten that journey and really reach that level of success that they've always wanted. So, okay, that's all I've got for you today. Just a quick dive into media and those 3 accelerators that are going to help you to become pursued, somebody who wants to find out more about who you are. And I will leave you with a story that was told to me. I was working and continue to work with a personal development coach. He was actually a guest on the podcast. And so when I started talking to Brandon, and he was saying, hey, man, I've seen a lot of your stuff. I want to talk with you more about how I can continue to grow my coaching business. Let's talk more about that. And so I shared with him the same idea, right? This business trifecta of how all these things work together. And so not that long ago, he shared a story with me. He was like, man, it happened exactly the way that you had said. There was a guy who heard about me through a different group, right? And so there was a level of credibility that was passed off there. And so he's like, man, well, if this guy is trusted by these people and I trust them as well, I'm going to go check out his content. So he went and listened to all of his podcasts, which were probably about, a handful at that time, or maybe a little bit more. And so we listened to all of his podcasts, and then he reached out to him on Instagram and said, hey man, I've listened to all of your podcasts. Like I love everything that you have to say. Like I want to talk. I just want to know, how do I get to work with you? What's the next step? Right. And so that's a very fast version of how this process works, but you can see how having the credibility, right? That mass media credential where he was a guest on a different podcast or a part of a different program that this guy was, which lended its credibility there, made him have another level of trust that put him into a place where he wanted to learn more about his content. Then he digested his content and found out that he really knows what he's talking about, and they aligned. The stories that he shared, the people that he interviewed, all of those things were like, oh man, this is my person. I know who they are. I know what they know, and I really want to work with them. And so there was nothing left for them other than to make the connection. He reached out and connected with him and said, hey, let me hop on your calendar. I want to find out more about what it's going to take to work with you. Right. And that's what this is all about. Right. And that's how this works. He went from being hidden, or people didn't know who he was, to being pursued, where somebody is asking, how can I work with you? And so that's what this does. And that's what it can do for you too. All right. As always, I hope you found this valuable. I hope you were able to take away some information that you can start implementing in your life or your business or whatever it is, and take that for what it's worth. If you did find it valuable, if you did take away some things, as always, please like, subscribe, share it with somebody else, and we'll continue helping you to elevate your brand and accelerate your journey to success. So like always, keep plugging away, and I look forward to talking with you next time on Elevate and Accelerate.